Hey guys, I'm OTG197 and I just reached 1,000 subs, so I want to thank each and every one of you for that. It really means the world to me. This came up so much faster than I expected, but today we'll be doing a 1,000 sub special, and since I guess I'm now officially a PokeTuber, I am legally obligated to make a top 10 favorite Pokemon list, so that's what we're going to do today. And as the channel grows, I will do more subscriber specials like this. The next one will be at 10,000, so help me get there by dropping a sub if you haven't already. Now this channel is first and foremost a Nuzlocking channel, and I imagine that's what you're all here for, so if you don't care what I think about things, that's fair. The next Nuzlocke video will be coming soon, but for the rest of you, I hope you enjoy. Before we get to the list, fair warning, I kinda just like things that are generically cool. There aren't really gonna be any subversive picks like Cryogonal or something. Spoiler alert, Cryogonal is not on the list. Sorry to all the cryo heads out there. And I feel like I'm gonna get roasted for a lot of my picks, so feel free to do that in the comments. I can take it. Now, I'm a weirdo who feels bad for the imaginary creatures that I like who didn't quite make the list, so before we get into the top 10, here are some honorable mentions. First is Sneasel. This was one of my favorite Pokemon from a generation that really defined my childhood. I do also like Weavile, but this is one of the only instances where I like a pre-evolution design a bit more. And I'm also a fan of Sneasler for keeping some of the same design elements. Next is Annihilate. I just think this is a really cool way to bring something new to a line that went untouched for so long, and I love the lore behind why it became a ghost type. Then there's Gyarados. It's an OG, sea serpents are cool, enough said. Garchomp is just Garchomp, it's cool as hell. Espeon I like to use in-game and competitively a lot, and its design is very elegant. Last honorable mention is Roaring Moon. This thing is just so sick, and I honestly have never been a huge Salamence fan. I wish this is what it had always looked like. It probably would have been one of my favorite Pokemon for a long time. Alright, on to the actual list. At number 10, I've got Volcarona. Now I like Volcarona for a lot of reasons. I loved using it competitively in Gen 5 and 6. I think it was an excellent way to introduce a very unique type combo, and it really put Moth Pokemon on the map. Many came before it being really dull and underwhelming, but Volcarona has such an awesome and powerful design fitting of how strong it is. When I first played Black and White, I did a blind playthrough, not knowing anything about the new Pokemon, and I still remember being blown away after finding this thing in the underground ruins. I instantly loved it, and to this day, it is still one of my favorites. At number 9, I've got another bug type, and a fan favorite in Scizor. There's nothing very deep and sophisticated about this one. Scizor is just objectively badass, and I'm sorry, but that's kind of enough for me. From Gen 4 onward, it's really fun to use competitively as well as in-game, and while its type combination isn't unique, it is still pretty great, and it is definitely the best user of it. To me, it's a massive upgrade from Scyther, who I actually like quite a lot also, but I'm always down to slap a metal coat on one to get this awesome bug. Coming in at number 8, I've got Haxorus. So, Haxorus is a dragon that I've always thought was a bit underrated, even though I would say it is a pretty well-liked Pokemon. Its evolutionary line very much looks like it could be the pseudo-legendary of Unova, but the fact that it isn't has made it always seem a bit overlooked to me, though I personally wish it was instead of Hydreigon. It is the first fully evolved dragon to be a pure dragon type, which makes it unique to me, and although I love Nuzlocking for the intricate strategy, I also sometimes like to just press Dragon Dance and destroy everything in my path, and I sure enjoyed doing that off of Haxorus's massive 147 base attack. Its design is just incredible to me, and it has one of the best shinies in my opinion. One thing I don't like is that I feel it kinda got butchered in the transition to 3D. Its model isn't very good, and I hope it could be made better in the future, but my headcanon on this Pokemon's design will always be its 2D sprite, which looks incredible. If new Unova games are around the corner as people are suspecting, I would really like to see Haxorus get some love. At number 7, I've got a Pokemon very near and dear to my heart, which is Trevenant. I have hinted a bit in the video that I did competitive battling, which is a reason for why I like quite a few of these Pokemon as much as I do, but Trevenant is one of the only Pokemon on the list where that is the main reason why they are here. While I do like Trevenant's design, that alone would not have gotten it this far, but how much fun I had using it competitively has made it one of my favorite Pokemon for a while. As a competitive player, I've always enjoyed thinking outside the box with my teams and diving into lower tiers to see what potential I could extract in my team builds, which led me to using Trevenant, an RU Pokemon, or low tier for those of you unfamiliar with competitive terms, in the high tier of OU. I was actually able to find quite a bit of success using it, with its typing being quite complementary to the core I had built around it. I built Trevenant as an all-out tank that would have massive longevity with a combination of its harvest ability and its held item that I would shuffle between being a citrus berry and a mago berry, both with their pros and cons. I accompanied this with a moveset of Leech Seed, Horn Leech, Substitute, and Protect. It excelled incredibly in chipping and stalling the opponent while being virtually impossible to KO if you couldn't take it out in one hit. I still have very fond memories of using it, and so it is number 7 on my list. Coming in at number 6, I've got the Eon Twin, Latios. Now, Latios is another Pokemon I have used a lot competitively, but there's plenty of things I like about it. First off is that I think its typing is just so good. Dragon Psychic just has so much power behind it, and they're both two of my favorite types, with Psychic actually being my favorite. Beyond that, I have a fun childhood memory of discovering this Pokemon. So I played Emerald as a kid, and this was back during a time where I didn't have a phone or access to the internet, and so when I played a new Pokemon game, it was completely blind, and I truly had to discover everything myself. And I still remember this thing randomly popping up on me just below Mount Pyre without even knowing it existed to begin with. And then it fled. So, as an 8-year-old who didn't have to work or pay bills, my highest priority in life became finding it again and capturing it. I thought by doing encounters over and over on that same route, it would appear again, which I literally did for days, but this proved useless, and I then discovered I could track it using the Pokedex, and soon enough, Latios became mine. This has always stuck out to me as a discovery playing Pokemon that filled me with childhood wonder, and I'll never forget what that was like. I also like Latias quite a lot, but Latios was the one I discovered first, and it is a bit more my cup of tea, being more offensively focused. Coming in at number 5, I've got the prehistoric sandwich fanatic, Koraidon. Now, Koraidon is the newest Pokemon to be included among my favorites, and I have to say, I wasn't expecting to like him so much, but when playing through Scarlet version, he left quite an impression on me. When I realized in the beginning of the game that I would be teaming up with the box art legendary, I was expecting it to be very stoic and non-expressive and almost act like it's too good for you, but when he turned out to just be this huge scaly puppy that you befriend, I was very quickly won over. As a box art legendary, Koraidon is of course amazing in battle, and I also like its design quite a lot, but this alone would not have brought him this high on my list. Really, the thing that pushes him over the edge is how throughout your playthrough he's just so silly and adorable. His antics definitely put a smile on my face throughout my playthrough of Scarlet many times, and I have to say, I don't think Game Freak has ever successfully balanced cute and badass as well as they did with Koraidon. Coming in at number 4, I've got Rayquaza. Yes, this is my 3rd legendary dragon type in a row, and I know I'm gonna get roasted for that, but like, I'm mentally 10 years old and dragons are cool. What do you want from me? Now, I'm definitely not alone in liking Rayquaza. It is a fan favorite for sure. It has a very sleek and striking design that is hard not to love, and if you ask me, it also has the best designed Mega Evolution. However, the main reason for me liking Rayquaza this much is kinda similar to my reason for liking Latios. As I said, I have very fond childhood memories of playing Pokemon Emerald, and most of the best memories of it came from discovering new things in the game. This is at a time when Pokemon games didn't hold your hand as much, and without being able to look things up, it forced me to figure things out in the game by exploring for myself. In regards to Rayquaza, I vividly remember during my first playthrough of Emerald not knowing where Sky Pillar was and searching for it for days all over the map, before eventually noticing a slight opening on the borders of the ocean, which was very easy to miss. I checked it out expecting to maybe find an island with an item or something, but sure enough, past that little opening was Sky Pillar, and sure enough, after traversing to the top, what awaited me was none other than this beast. I will never forget what a larger-than-life discovery this felt like to me as a little kid, and so Rayquaza being directly involved with one of the best memories I have playing Pokemon is why it is number 4. At number 3, we've got another home Pokemon, but one that was with us from the very beginning. It's Blaziken. Honestly, I think I can keep this entry pretty brief. Everyone has their favorite starter, and I think it's fairly common for someone's favorite starter to be one of their favorite Pokemon. While Blaziken was not my first starter, that would be Blastoise, Emerald version feels like my first experience with Pokemon that was truly mine, because although I had played Blue and Silver before it, they belonged to a sibling, whereas Emerald was the first game that belonged to me. Something has always drawn me to Blaziken. I think it has a really sick design, and its offensive stats have always made it really fun to use in Gen 3 and onward as it gained new moves and access to the speed boost ability. I'm hoping if there's ever another Legends game that gives new forms to past starters, Blaziken will be among them. Side note, I made this script before the Legends Zygarde game was announced, so fingers crossed on that one. And in the number 2 spot, I've got Mewtwo. Yes, another legendary, and look, I know Mewtwo is considered massively overrated, and at one point I would have agreed, but looking back, there's just no denying how much I like this guy. He was super cool as the villain in the first movie, and finding him deep in Cerulean Cave was an incredible cherry on top after beating Red and Blue version for the first time. But the real thing that makes me like Mewtwo is how real he is. And by that, I mean how his origins are based on genetic engineering, something that occurs in our real world. It's a story about how humans pushed the boundaries of discovery at their own peril. The way Mewtwo's origins map onto the realities of our world, to me makes him far more interesting as a legendary than whimsical concepts like the God of Time or Yin and Yang. Mewtwo's story as a tormented soul who hates its own existence but learns to value life is great, and I think how closely it hits home for so many people is why he will always be one of the most well-liked Pokemon of all time.
We dreamed of creating the world's strongest Pokémon. And we succeeded.
Finally, coming in at number 1, I've got Umbreon. Now, keen-eyed viewers may have seen this one coming. I mean, the 197 in my name is for Umbreon's dex number, and I did just say outright in my Renegade Platinum Dark types run that Umbreon is my favorite Pokemon, which is my least viewed run, by the way. Y'all should watch that one, it's pretty good. Anyways, I have quite a history with this Pokemon, and I can't get into all of it, but I will tell you the story of how it became my favorite Pokemon. So, as I said in my Trevenant entry, I used to be a competitive battler who liked to utilize lesser used Pokemon in the higher tiers, and one of Trevenant's teammates on that team I used was Umbreon. Now, I always liked Umbreon, but never considered it my favorite, but what got it there was that when I started using one on my OU team in Gen 6, a lot of people who I played with would tell me, Umbreon sucks, you need to get rid of it, and you should use Chansey instead, it completely outclasses Umbreon. But I really didn't want to use Chansey, I think it's super cringe, and despite the naysayers, I wanted to stick it out with Umbreon. With my team of misfits, I was doing quite well for myself, getting into the top 5 on the Pokemon Showdown OU ladder. Then, one fateful day, I would queue up and get a ranked match against the current number 1 player. Now, Chansey does outclass Umbreon in some regards, but there are some key differences that give them both their own pros and cons, and in this battle, the pros of Umbreon would shine, as my opponent's team was built around a special sweeper that utilized the move Psyshock to deal with the very common Chansey. However, Umbreon is completely immune to this move, so it was able to easily dismantle any momentum he tried to gain, stalling out many of his team members with a combination of Toxic and Protect, while supporting the rest of its team with Wish. I unfortunately don't have a replay of the battle, but a couple of highlights I remember from it was my opponent attempting to set up sword stands on me with Scizor and getting one shot by a foul play, hitting a Toxic on his Volcarona as he tried setting up a Quiver Dance, which didn't allow it to get much done, and Toxic stalling his Rotom Wash and Latios. Ultimately, Umbreon led the charge in what would result in a 5-0 victory for me, due in large part to my opponent just not being ready to deal with an Umbreon. After so many people told me not to use it and said it sucked, Umbreon ended up playing the biggest role in a battle that would move me to being number 1 in OU on Showdown, and from that moment forward, it has always been my favorite Pokemon, and I truly don't see another one topping it anytime soon. So, there you have it. That is my top 10 favorite Pokemon. Thanks for watching, and of course, thank you all again for 1,000 subs. I am so excited to see what the future of this channel holds. Regular content will be back soon with a Renegade Platinum run coming this month, so stay tuned and I'll see you in my next video. Peace.